Well, Senator Rick Scott, thank you very much for your time.
It's nice to be with you.
Thank you.
Beautiful Miami.
It is.
A lot better weather than DC.
Sunny day, actually. So we're here in the Concordia Summit of America. And one of the big topics today is going to be how to improve the economic situation of Latin America. What's your proposal to improve the economic situation of Latin America?
Well, first off, I think it starts with making sure that we decouple our efforts with doing anything with China. I mean, China is a cancer. The government of China is just a cancer. Whether it's China or Russia or Iran, their influence in Latin America is horrible for the people of Latin America. Then we've got to get a president that's actually going to talk about Latin America. I can't get Biden to do anything. I mean, we got about 1,400 peaceful protesters in prison in Cuba. Can't get him to talk about it. He takes FARC off the terrorist watch list out of Colombia. He reduces the sanctions on Maduro. How does that help the people? If you, think about this. Trade happens with trust, right? Do you trust the government of Venezuela or Nicaragua or Cuba right now? You don't. So if we don't figure out how to create more liberty and freedom, I don't know how we're going to get more trade. Trade's based on trust. And so, but right now we got these malign influences, China, Russia, Iran, they're there. And then we got the cancer of the Cuban regime, which is what their involvement. So it's a tough time for Latin America.
Just a few days ago, 4 American citizens were abducted in Mexico. 2 of them were killed. And immediately after that, you reintroduced a bill to designate drug cartels as terrorist organizations. Why do you think that has to be done?
Well, first off, they are, right? They are clearly a terrorist organization. The border on our side is completely open. The border on the Mexico side is completely secure by the cartels. And I mean, they are trafficking people, okay? They are, I mean, when you stop and just think about that for a second, that somebody would traffic a person, a child, they'll sell you a child. I mean, this is just despicable. Also, they're bringing drugs into our country. They're bringing criminals into our country. They're bringing terrorists into our country. I mean, 70,000, think about it, 70,000 people died of fentanyl coming across the border. And most of the drugs coming in this country are coming across the border.
Your Republican colleague from Texas, Representative Dan Crenshaw, even suggests that the U.S. military should be able to target these drug cartels in Mexico. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think the right thing to do is declare them a terrorist organization. The right thing to do is secure the border. If we secure the border, their influence will go down because they won't be making the money they have. I think anything the American military does, you have to figure out how to work with the Mexican government to be able to deal with that.
So far, you don't agree with that position of sending the U.S. military? I
think what we got to be doing is look, we've got to get rid of the cartels, but I think you have to do it in conjunction with the government of Mexico.
Yeah. Mexican president reacted to those initiatives, and he threatened to influence Mexican citizens who live in the U.S. and who can vote in the U.S. to vote away from the Republican Party. How do you take that threat?
Well, here's my experience. It shouldn't matter what your skin color is in this country, what your ancestry is. I think people vote based on what's good for their families. I mean, can you get a job? Can your kids get a good education? Can you live the American dream? Do you live in a safe community? That's how I think, people vote. I mean, I put a lot of effort into Hispanic groups to try to say, how can we be helpful? You probably know I have 9 offices in the state. We do a lot of immigration. We do a lot of VA. We do a lot of Medicare issues. And my experience is people are here because they want to live the dream. They like the opportunities in America. And do they want a secure border? We all do.
But I believe the Mexican president's concern is that the sovereignty of Mexico can be violated with all these initiatives of naming drug organizations terrorist groups. Do you agree with that?
Well, I don't think there's a question they're a terrorist group. But I think the way I would do it, I think they ought to be declared a terrorist group because they are. And we got to stop them from having influence in our country. We've got to secure our border, and then we got to figure out how can we work with the Mexican government to stop this. It's not good for Mexico. It's not. I mean, Mexico relies on a lot of American tourists. If you're an American tourist, would you go to Mexico right now? I wouldn't. And so it's not good for them. They need trade with America. There's a lot of Mexicans that have jobs with American companies to sell products into America. So I think our countries have to work together. But unfortunately, Biden's, he doesn't get involved in anything. Nothing's happening. The Biden administration just sits there.
Let's talk about Florida. Just a few years ago, you were the governor of this state, and now Ron DeSantis is leading the state in a different way that you did. And he says that Florida, with his leadership in its current state, is the new blueprint for the GOP's future. And I wonder how you feel about that.
Well, here's what I'm happy. The state continues to have low taxes. The state continues to improve its education system. The state continues to support our law enforcement. That's what I mostly focused on. When I was governor, we turned the economy around and added 1.7 million jobs. We became #1 higher education. When I left, we were 47-year low unemployment rate. So what I think Florida should be known for, this is a place where you can live your dream. You can get a job, you can build a company. This is a place where your children can get a great education, you can afford higher education. I stopped the tuition increases, and we became #1 higher education in our university system in the country. And you live in a safe neighborhood. That's what I think this state is known for and should continue to be known for.
Do you think the current government is the new blueprint for the GOP's future?
Well, I think the blueprint for the future is making sure people can get a job, make sure people get a good education, their kids, because that's a family's future, right? And then make sure they're in a safe community. I think that's at the state level. That's what Americans want. At the federal level, they also want their federal government to be responsive, secure the border, deal with the drug problems, have a lethal military where people are scared of us, but we don't have to go to war.
Now, what do you think about Governor Ron DeSantis' proposals on immigration? He wants to take in-state tuition for Dreamers. He wants to stop IDs for undocumented immigrants. He wants to mandate hospitals to ask for immigration status. What do you think of those positions?
I passed legislation. I signed legislation
Yes.
that I'm proud of that said that if you're, think about this. If you're a child that was brought here by your parents, you were brought here, not the right way, but you grew up in our system. You're a little 5-year-old girl. You came here. You came through our system. I believe that if you're an upstanding citizen, you're not a criminal, things like that. I think you got to get in-state tuition. I want those kids to do well, and so I would sign that bill today.
But Governor Ron DeSantis wants to get rid of that. So, what does that mean to you?
Well, I'm on the opposite side of that. I think what we have to do is we want legal immigration in this country. We want immigration. We're an immigration state. All right, we have people from all over Central and South America, and we're a great melting pot where people get along and they're part of building this great state. And so I think we've got to figure out how do we have a legal immigration system that works. I know it starts with a secure border. We've got to do that. And then let's figure out how do we have a system that works where, if you want to come here and live our dream, you don't want to turn this into a communist country. You want to come here and live our dream, you ought to be able to come here. And, you shouldn't become dependent on government. We want people who are going to come and help build this country. I think it's great. Yeah. I like immigration.
Where do you stand in these other issues very quickly? Permitless carry bill. What do you think about that?
Well, I generally rely on the sheriffs, what they think, and we already have a concealed weapon program that works.
6-week abortion ban.
Well, first off, that's a tough issue for people. You really have to be really compassionate what people are going through. I think where most people are is reasonable restrictions, and probably most people are about 15 weeks with all the exceptions. And so, they ought to have exception for rape and incest and life of the mother. And so I think that's where the population is, and I think that's our state. Our state legislation ought to represent that.
What about the press protection rollback? Do you agree with that?
What's that one?
The press protection rollback, protection for journalists they could be rolled back in this legislature in Florida.
I believe in the First Amendment. So I don't know what you would do to change. I'm not familiar with that proposal, but I believe there's a reason for the First Amendment. I believe you have to have a strong press.
So just to be
I like
clear,
them to write nice things about me, by the way.
now, just to be clear, you like the way. I mean, I get a sense that you don't really like the way that Governor Ron DeSantis is running things and some of his proposals.
Well, here's what I tell people. I'm a kid that grew up in public housing. I was born to a single mom. I live the dream of this country. You know what I want? I want that dream to be true for every kid in this state. And that's how I think about my job. That's how I thought of my job as governor, how I think about my job as a U.S. senator, is how do we make it that this is the state that, every kid's got a chance to live the dream. So what I focused on when I was governor is best state for jobs, best state for education, best state for living in a safe community. And that's what I did. And then figure out how do we make sure that, if you're here, that we can help you. Now, I don't want illegal immigration. I don't think that's right, but I do want legal immigration. Mm-hmm. Immigrants have built this state. I mean, they've been unbelievably important to this state. Look at Miami. Look at the vibrant. It's like sometimes you feel like you get the best and brightest from Latin America that want to come here, right? I mean, that's why it's a vibrant place.
Now, two potential candidates for the White House are precisely from Florida. Do you think what's the difference between Ron DeSantis and President Donald Trump?
I'll tell you, I think you have to, how I always look at it? I always tell everybody, when you're going to vote for somebody, would you hire them to manage your life? Because that's what we're doing, okay? And so I think what you have to do is you have to look at all the candidates, whether it's Trump or DeSantis or Nikki Haley or any of them, and say, what is their background? How did they do the jobs they have now? What's my concerns about the future? And so if the issues of the country today, who would be the best? And there's going to be other people that get into the race.
And do you have an answer for that question? Who would be the best?
There's going to be a lot of people getting into the race.
Let's talk
one thing about this job, of being the governor for 8 years and now being the Senate for 4, you get to meet most of them.
Yeah.
And you have so much more knowledge because you deal with it every day, right?
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the budget. President Biden just revealed his proposal. You said it's massively reckless. Those were your words, right?
Yeah, it is.
What's your proposal? What do you think we should start cutting costs?
So I did this, okay? You do it. Every company does it. You say, this is my revenues. You know what you make, right? What you get paid. And you say, okay, this is how much I have to spend. What's so hard about doing that with the federal budget? I walked in as governor of Florida. Florida had not lived within its revenue base for 20 straight years before I became governor. It increases debt $1 billion a year, all right? So I walked in and I said, we're going to balance the budget. So what do? We said, okay, this is what we think our revenues are going to be. And we went through every line and we said, what do we have to have and what are nice to have? We need to do the same thing. It's not like you like at the federal level. What we need to do is actually do the same thing. We don't even do budgets.
But you're in the budget committee, so.
But we don't have meetings.
But do you have any ideas? What should you reduce costs from? Agriculture, education, veterans.
What I would do is I'd say, okay, we have to make sure that the safety net programs that people rely on continue, right? We want to make sure the benefits of Medicare are there. Now, are there ways to improve the delivery system to reduce the cost of Medicare? Yeah, I was in that business. I can tell you there was. Okay? On Social Security, we got to preserve those benefits. On Medicaid, there are clearly ways to provide benefits at a lower cost. Every company does it every year. We don't have any conversations like that.
Senator Rick Scott, I think we have to wrap, but I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to talk with you. Nice.
Thank you. If you're ever in D.C., if you're ever going to go up there, or
I go very often.
So if you ever are trying to find somebody that you want to talk to that you can't,